Rockfin.
I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati.
All right. Happy Friday, guys. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. I want to let you know, if you are new, Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And you can catch me here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Going to do something a little bit different tonight. I actually have guests here tonight. We have Professor Anthony Zinkas and we have Zeynab J, and I want to go ahead and let them introduce themselves. So, Professor Zinkas.
Hi, I am Anthony Zinkas, and a little bit about the background you want to know now, or no? Just I'm a specialist in trauma, with the specialization in things like domestic violence, sexual violence, child abuse, and human trafficking. I teach at the Columbia School of Social Work and also the Adelphi University School of Social Work, and I've been a director at rape crisis centers, 2 of them in New York. Worked very closely with police and prosecutors on many cases, we'll talk about this, but so I've known Zeynab for some months now, and we've been speaking, and I'm happy to be here to support her.
Thanks so much. Zeynab?
I was muted. Hi, I am Zeynab J. I was the former communications director at Brand New Congress. I was press director at Justice Democrats years ago. And I was the former executive director at Movement for a People's Party. And I am a journalist and a leftist activist.
All right. So I want to get started. I want to explain to everyone what's been going on, especially those of you who may be new. A couple months ago, I interviewed Nick Brana about some allegations that came out against him from Zeynab, and also other issues that were happening at MPP. That video, I think, took place in April. So Zeynab has agreed to come on tonight and to tell her side of the story. I told you guys back then at the beginning of that interview, I reached out to both parties and that both of them were invited on. I do have some recordings that I will be playing tonight as well. So I just do want to prepare those of you. This will be somewhat of a heavy topic. So I just want to prepare you for that. So I do want to start with this, Zeynab. Can you explain to everyone, just so they understand the backstory, how did you become involved with MPP?
I heard about Movement for a People's Party when I went to the People's Summit in 2017. And I met Nick Brana there, and Brand New Congress helped to flyer for the draft Bernie. The draft Bernie push, we were excited to see that people were starting a third party, because at that organization, we wanted to run candidates that were independent, all progressive, but, you know, some from different parties as well. So that was a cool prospect. And at that point, I kind of talked to them some for a few months as they were getting up and going, and reconnected in October of 2020, because we were looking at potentially recruiting candidates. So the People's Party reached out to us about potential endorsements if they were to have candidates on their slate, and conversations started at that point while I was still at Brand New Congress as communications director.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So I want to start from the beginning, because I want to kind of take people through a timeline here. Can you start from the very beginning? And I told you I'll get into the recordings after you tell your story. Could you explain, how did this all start with Nick Brana? Because as I'm sure you know, when he was on the show, obviously, you know, he had a different story. So I do want to make sure that your voice is heard as well.
I started at the People's Party in probably December of 2020, volunteering to help them with their candidate recruitment pipeline, and just advising on campaigns, and even messaging and fundraising, because I have a lot of background in that. And then it moved to them offering me a position in March as candidate recruitment director. So I was hired then as candidate recruitment director, and I also did fundraising, email, helped with messaging, social media, and that sort of thing. And as we moved along, I started getting involved more. They were bringing me on to board calls so that I could advise, because I have a background in Federal Election Commission regulation. I have a background, I've helped over, you know, about 95 congressional campaigns. So I have a lot of that electoral work under my belt. And I had been, you know, doing movement work for a long time, as well as the kind of journalistic background. So they brought me in to help with more and more projects. Eventually, board members had decided that they wanted me to become executive director, and they sort of pitched that to me. I wasn't sure at first. I was like, that's a lot of responsibility. I'll have to think about that. But then they kind of convinced me that it was needed. I was already doing a lot of the work already. And so I agreed to that. Right around that same time, at the beginning of July, I was speaking with Nick regularly for work. It was really nice to have someone that I could speak to about politics, and has similar passions and understanding about issues that I did. So we became good friends, and we were talking regularly. He invited me to his birthday celebration in DC. We had gone a few weeks before. Paula Jean Swearingen had gone with me a few weeks before that to DC to vet Paula Jean for sort of leading in West Virginia and doing work with the People's Party as well. So Paula wanted to meet everyone before she came on, and see kind of what the culture was and atmosphere was, especially since there was issues with the People's Party. She really wanted to sit down and talk to them and find out what was going on before she decided to join. So I drove her up there, and that's the first time I met Nick Brana in person. So this was before he invited me to the birthday party, to his birthday celebration in July. We kind of did flirt there that night. I think that was mutual. We both flirted, but it was also sort of awkward because he was essentially my boss. He's the chair of the organization. So I didn't know how I felt about it, but he ended up calling me several times after that trip. We ended up having very long phone conversations. He asked me a lot of personal questions. You know, I told him that I had been through abuse when I was a child. He asked me, one of the things that made me uncomfortable even then was that he was asking me to give details of what was the abuse. You know, what did you go through? Exactly what happened? He ended up telling me that he liked me. He said, I like you. I think that we should date. I told him I didn't know exactly how I felt about that. I'm not one to date coworkers. So it ended up sort of escalating to where I did agree to go to his birthday party in July at his house. My understanding was that there was going to be more people there, and it ended up being just me. But it was actually a nice trip. I enjoyed it. We ended up dating. After that, things started escalating very quickly. A lot of really long hour phone calls. It was about probably a month and a half in when I started seeing real signs of abusive behavior, keeping me on the phone until 6 or 7 in the morning, sometimes arguing over issues at work, or going in circles on a topic that, you know, he wanted me to agree with him on, or just keeping me up and until that time. And, you know, I would say I need to get off the phone. I would get off the phone, and then he would call me back. But
And
then I would have to get up for work the next morning and then do the work as well. So that sort of escalated. We dated for several months, and
just really quick, Zeynab, at that time, was he still your boss at that time?
yes, he was. Well, he was the chair of the organization. So essentially, yeah, he sort of had sway over the board, and he had sway over my job. So there was a lot of, what ended up happening is a mix, too much mixing between, and I was very clear that I wanted it to be separate, you know, but there was mixing between work. If he got aggravated with me or mad at me about something at work, he would call me and keep me on the phone, and he would say things like, you know, if you can't compromise or agree with me on these issues, if you can't have my back, so if I agreed with something that the majority of the board agreed with, but Nick was maybe a minority on something he would bring before the board, he would call me and say, you need to have my back. If you can't have my back and we can't be partners in our relationship, I don't know how we can be partners at work. So at that point, I started feeling like I was not in a good situation, and my daughter was starting to see the abuse, and she was very uncomfortable with it, and she was pushing me to end the relationship. And Paula Jean Swearingen saw it. She's my best friend. So she knew that I was not in a good place. So I had people that were loving me, that love me, telling me, you need to end this. But I didn't know how I could end it and also keep my job because of this dynamic that had been created. It went into November. And on November 17th, it kind of came to a head because he had won the chair election. And he had called me, and I congratulated him. And he said, you didn't retweet me enough. You didn't share enough about it. You didn't, you know, you didn't celebrate it enough. But I was also the head of the Elections Integrity Commission that we had created. And I took that really seriously. And I wanted to have a non-biased election. And that was really important to me. And keep in mind, this whole time, the board was not informed of us dating because Nick did not want to tell them. And I knew that if I came forward and told them, I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know if I would still have my job. I didn't know how that would go, but I felt uncomfortable with them not knowing and me doing this work at the same time. That didn't feel right to me, if that makes any sense.
Was there anything, just sorry, but was there anything in the guidelines at MPP that coworkers couldn't date or not? No? Okay.
We had no guidelines. We had no sexual harassment policy. And when I brought it forward, when we were working on the handbook to include that, Rod and Nick said, we don't really need that here. That, you know, we may not need it. So, but I did feel like, obviously I was going through stuff. And so I thought, if I'm going through it, other people could go through things in the future. Any organization, and I was executive director, any organization needs a sexual harassment policy. You should have one in place. So we had the phone call after, like I had mentioned, he wanted me to move to DC after a month and a half, and I couldn't move to DC because of my daughter. And I told him, because of so much pressure, I was like, I'll think about it, but I need to talk to my family first. I need to make sure that, but I really don't know if I can. I don't think that I can afford to live in DC. I don't think that it would be good to take my daughter away from her nana and my family. And I need that support because I'm a single mother. So there was a lot of back and forth about me moving. I felt like that was way too soon, in my personal opinion. No judgments on other people's opinion, but for me, that was way too soon in a relationship as a mom with responsibilities to, uproot myself and move and lose my entire support system and move away from my family. And I was worried about what kind of dynamic that would create, since it was already becoming a controlling relationship. So on November 17th, I ended the relationship. And it was because, 4 days before, my daughter literally picked up my phone and she said, "You don't have to talk to him, Mom. You can just hang up." And I told her, it came out of my mouth, I said, "I need to keep my job." Then I realized that was I was letting her know that it was okay to be abused, to keep your job. And that wasn't okay anymore. And she told me, she's 12, and she told me, she said, "No matter what, Mom will be okay." She's stronger than me. So I ended up ending the relationship because I wasn't happy. It was toxic. So what ended up happening after the relationship ended is we tried to maintain. I sent him a text and I said, I want things to be professional from here on out. I want to end this relationship. We would get on the phone for work, and there was one night that he asked me, he had said that, he said, "Do you still touch yourself? Can you get on?" He asked me first to get on the Zoom, on the video Zoom. And I told him, "I'm not really comfortable getting on video. We can just do this over voice." And he said, "I'd like to see your face." And this went on for a couple of hours. So I did finally get on the video. And then he said, "Do you still touch yourself? If we're friends, we can still be friends with benefits." And I said, "No, I'm not comfortable with that." Then there was another time 2 or 3 days later that he asked me to take my computer to my bedroom to have, sexual relations with him digitally. And I told him, "My daughter's still awake. I'm not comfortable with this. We're not in a relationship anymore. No, I don't want to do this." But this wasn't the first time I had said no. There were many times that I had said, "No, I don't want to do this activity," or "I don't want to have sex," that he would push for hours sometimes. And in those conversations, when we were still together, he would say things like, "In a relationship, it doesn't matter if you don't, if you feel bad, you still compromise for your partner. You still compromise for them." There was a time, which I reported to the workplace as well, that he had my car keys. He had the hotel room key. My daughter was up in the bedroom. And I can't get into a lot of details on this for other reasons, but he wouldn't let me go to the room. He wouldn't give me my car keys. And he was saying things like, "If you can't compromise, I don't know how you can compromise at work." This went on for 3.5 to 4 hours before he just went ahead, and after I had said no, and I told him no means no, and I said no probably 24 times, he went ahead and did. And afterwards, he said, "Thank you for compromise."
Let's Professor Zinkus, I want to get you in here for a second. And I know you've talked to Zeynab. Based on your experience as a trauma expert, what is your evaluation? Please educate all of us. I think you're muted though.
It's hard because Zeynab and I were connected through Paula, right? Some months ago. And it was before everything had come out in public. Conversations that we had were difficult conversations, right? And I remember, I remember when Zeynab referred to the things that she just described here, there was a lot of pain in her voice. And, you know, in the work that I do, I train professionals and I teach students in graduate social work programs about trauma and what it does to us. And so, like, it's just important to remember a trauma is not an event, a thing that happens. It is the experience we have in response to it. And that stays with us, right? And it could be anything. It could be a trauma from a car accident, or it can be from sexual harassment or assault. And, you know, that happens when our ability to cope, to make sense of things, like, why is this happening? What is going on? Where you feel defenseless and or powerless, that we become overwhelmed. It's not just regular stress. And regular stress we all have. Stress about bills, stress about our careers, stress about family, about illness, on and on. Those stresses can be very difficult. But trauma is a response that goes deeper than stress. It's one where our normal abilities to cope just don't work. And we can have many different types of reactions to it. It's not just being sad. It's not just feeling powerless. It can affect our whole bodies. It can affect our minds. Going through trauma, our responses to trauma can make a person question whether they're sane or not. Am I crazy? It can affect, I mean, often it affects ability to sleep, to eat. Our relationships with people can be affected, you know, and Zeynab has obviously a daughter, right? I mean, so that's a huge responsibility. So, and I thought about this at the time, you know, Zeynab, when you were telling me your story, how important, you know, your relationship is with your daughter, and how you were able to maintain and to be able to still be a mom, and how difficult that must have been and still must be when these feelings can overwhelm us, right? And put us in the situation where you feel powerless, catatonic, confused. Am I crazy, right? I think the thing that makes this type of trauma, workplace trauma, so insidious is the feeling that there's not an ability to escape. You know, the fact that Zeynab said, I have to stay on the phone. I have to keep my job. You know, we live in a society where, you know, a job is the difference between being able to survive and not survive. So it's not that a person has a choice to just walk away, you know, and that's a mistake a lot of people make. You hear people who have the luxury of never having been in a situation like this say, well, you know, hey, I have sympathy, but if that happened to me, I would just leave. And that's one of the really, as I said, insidious things about this type of trauma, is that you feel you can't leave. The person makes it so you feel you can't leave, that you don't have another choice, that you just have to keep putting up with it. And then it goes on and it goes on and it goes on, and you're in that trap. And this was your boss, right? And it wasn't just another coworker. This was the chair of the party, you know. And that whole phase of it, when we were speaking about this, was one thing. And then it became public. And then people's, you know, it got, I think, reported, but not in depth, just referred to. It might have been a Jordan Sheridan piece where it was just referred to that there was harassment. That was it. Nothing, you know, Zeynab's name wasn't thrown out there. It was just reported that this was a thing. And then the People's Party came out with a statement. And that was a whole other piece now to the trauma, because that statement, and I don't know what they were thinking. In that piece, they outed Zeynab without saying her name, because a lot of people knew that, right, that Zeynab and Nick had had a consensual relationship. Is it okay that I term it that way? That you were dating. And I guess at that point that you weren't. So people knew who it was. And so now, you know, somebody who's abused in any way in the workplace, but especially through sexual harassment, or they feel that they've been violated in this way, has the right to file a complaint in privacy. Zeynab had never done that in the public forum. That wasn't her intention. Our discussions weren't around that. And all of a sudden, here it is. A statement pinned top tweet from the People's Party saying the woman who, you know, made these allegations, I was in, I guess this was Nick speaking and writing it, I was in a consensual relationship with, people know this. And then so there that you were outed without ever you coming forward, right? So you would never come forward publicly. And it was your right not to. Zeynab's right not to. And then the second piece was they started attacking her character. So this is a whole other dimension to trauma, because now it's in the public forum, which most sexual harassment never gets to the public forum. People have all that other stuff to worry about that I just spoke about, but not seeing their relationship referred to, and then being attacked and being called an operative for the Democratic Party. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. It was, and that this was all political. So completely taking power away from a victim's right to make a private claim and have it properly investigated. That was taken away. And in my conversations with Zeynab, that was traumatic for her and continues to be. And it's troubling. We were just talking on the phone earlier about how some people are referring to what is happening to Nick Brana is that Nick has been Me Too'd, which is a horrible, horrible phrase. That's not what it's about. What this story needs to be about, and it doesn't matter if it was the People's Party or if it was the pizza restaurant down the street. If a worker has been in a position where they feel that they were sexually abused and it has caused them trauma, they have a right to file a complaint, and there is an expectation that there will be a proper investigation and that the results of that investigation will allow that victim to have justice. And that is absolutely the opposite of what happened here. I tweeted out when I originally spoke with Zeynab that I had spoken with the person who was hurt, who was harmed, who was a victim. And I didn't say her name. And I said, I believe her. What I didn't do is I didn't make this a daily thing that I tweeted about. I didn't feel that that was appropriate. I just wanted to throw out there that I stood with her. And then I started getting attacked by, and I'm not comparing what happened to me at all, but the fact is, I don't know who these people were that started coming into my threads and just saying horrible things. And then I got a very disturbing email a few months back from Nick. And I mean, it was unfortunate, and I was disappointed, right? Because my fight was not with him. My fight was with what happened. I'm not Nick's victim. Standing with the victim should not mean that, you know, we're getting intimidated. And I'm not, again, saying that that caused me great pain. What it does do is make me feel concerned that when a victim is attacked and people who stand up for her are intimidated, the goal seems to be to keep a victim in silence, which is not the way we fix the situation of sexual harassment and trauma.
So to be clear, I just want to make sure, because I see some people may have just came in. To be clear, the complaint that was filed with MPP, technically this incident, I just want to make sure that people are aware, this incident, would you describe it as sexual harassment or sexual assault?
I reported both. I actually had gotten on the phone with Thomas Ryko, who is one of the board members. We were working on a project. We were doing some technical stuff for our email program. And he told me that Nick had called him. My birthday's December 21st. Nick had called him saying that he wanted to arrange a surprise birthday party at my house. Like to come to Kentucky and have board members come to Kentucky to see me. Now, he'd already asked if he could come visit me. And I had said, no, I was not comfortable with that. So that was sort of the trigger moment where I just lost it. And I ended up telling everything to Thomas. I ended up reporting it because he was trying to come to my house. My daughter's here. That scared me, to be honest. And I just, that was the moment that I ended up reporting it to Thomas. Thomas called other board members and I filed an official complaint.
Okay. I have a recording here. I do want to share this. An FYI for people who may be wondering, when Nick Brana was here in April, he told me that he had documentation as well. I told him to send that information to me. As of today, I never received that information. I did follow back up with him again about those documents to have not received it. He was invited to come back on after more allegations came out against him, a different situation, and he said he would come back on. He did not. So I do want to go ahead. There's a recording here I want to share. And this one, I believe, is, yes, in reference to the recommendation. So another thing that happened when Nick was here, he did mention, and I'm not going to play this like out of respect for Zeynab. I'm not going to show his face on here while she's here. But he did mention, I asked him what happened with the investigation. And he said they closed it because they didn't discover anything. Long story short. So I have a recording here from a meeting. I'm gonna go ahead and play this. And I'm using auto, you guys, just so there's a transcript for those of you who like to read along with your listening here. I'll make this a little bit larger. So it should go in order. We're going to start right here where it says all right. And I'm going to mute myself really quick so I don't get an echo with this.
For the first issue for Nick, given the fiduciary responsibility of the organization, Nick must report anything that could negatively impact the organization. Yeah. B, that Nick should not serve in a one-to-one supervisory capacity for a period of 6 months. He would need to be free of any complaints violating fiduciary duty, non-disclosure, and/or sexual harassment, of course, during that 6-month period, by any contractor, staff, or volunteer. Nick is relieved from direct supervision of the executive director. The executive director shall report directly to the board. So he is.
Oh, 1 second. Someone said the sound is off. That's weird. I can hear it just fine.
Yeah, it's really low on my end.
On your end, it's really low. Let me try. Let me stop share and just do it through Dropbox. It might be easier that way. Maybe recap. Yeah, I'll do that, Eric. I'll go to the Dropbox instead. Give me just a second, guys.
And
Yeah.
just to let you know, Sabby, this was 2 days after the board was removed. So this was on, I believe it was February 21st, 2 days, or the day after the board was removed. The 5 board members were removed.
Okay. Let me go ahead here. I think it's lower on Dropbox for some reason. Like on my end, it's really loud. But here's what I'm gonna do. I have that transcript anyway. So let me just share that because I can read it to people because the sound's really low. Let me add this to the stream. So this is the first recording. Again, I know you guys said it's really low, but there's something I do want to show you right here. This is the part that's concerning. And I will say this because, again, like I said, I did ask him about this when he was on. And he said that there was nothing, they did nothing to him because there was nothing found. In this conversation, however, it says that we want to try to find out is where your heart is. And wait a minute, hold on. Okay, yeah, this is the one. Okay. It says here, let me start here. Okay, the first issue, given the fiduciary responsibilities organization, Nick must report anything that negatively impacts the organization. Should not be, he should not serve in one-to-one supervisory capacity for a period of 6 months. So I'm going to ask you, Zeynab, did that happen? Do you know if he was removed from that?
I don't know, but I do know that Michelle and Elise did go on Jackson Hinkle, and they had said, and this was just, I believe, 4 days after this phone conversation or 3 days after this phone conversation, that they found nothing. And that, you know, the investigation actually ended, according to them, 2 months earlier, and they found nothing then. And so on that call, to me, you know, my assumption was nothing happened, but I honestly, I don't know, because I wasn't, they removed me the day after this conversation. They removed me from the organization. So I don't know.
And who are the two individuals on this call speaking?
That is David and David Mizels and Elise Maisel.
Okay, and what are their roles?
They are both board members.
Okay.
There were 2 of the remaining board members after the other 5 had been removed.
Okay. And it goes on to say, you need to be free of any claims filing fiduciary duty, non-disclosure, and or sexual harassment or string theory by any contract to staff volunteer. Nick is relieved from direct supervision of the executive director. The executive director shall directly to work. So
I'm just going to interrupt. I think shall report directly to the board.
Yes.
Is what it seems to be saying.
Okay. So he is definitely not going to you there. Nick is asked to repeat from attending staff meetings.
He had to not go to staff meetings. So he had to, no longer attend staff meetings.
As executive directors, needs these questions to discern except for the entire board. And our recommendations for the next to start immediately, of course, is within 3 months, but not limited to the following sexual harassment management courses. And how will the teams and mandatory for U.S. investment organizations? And then I think this is the part down here where they were asking you, how do you feel about this? And you came in and said you need a little bit more time to look at it. I think, again, I think what is concerning is the fact that, again, I did ask this question, and My question is, if they didn't find anything during the investigation, then why were they making recommendations towards him? And why were they asking him to take sexual harassment management courses?
I also want to throw out on that piece, which is nowhere in here does it seem to talk about the importance of the organization coming up with a sexual harassment policy, which did not exist at the time, which I was kind of blown away when I heard that especially a progressive organization wouldn't think it important to have one already in place. But absolutely, after this happened, I don't know what they've done since, but it should have been done.
They said later in the call that we would work on that harassment policies and other policies, and that they would be getting my advising on that as well. But that was later. That was later in the call. So, but they had mentioned that, but they didn't. I don't think they said. I can't remember if they said sexual harassment policies exactly, but they did say policies to prevent issues like this in the future.
Okay. And I'm sorry, you guys, again, like, I'm sorry the volume is low on everyone else's end. It's weird because it's really loud on my end. But another thing that I wanted to point out as well, this part right here, watch the special committee. We shall consult with counsel and any other necessary resources to establish workplace policies and procedures, contractor status and timekeeping, human resource management, sexual harassment policy, intake delays, and policies and procedures should be necessary. Additionally, organizations, sorry about that. And I think that's when his dog came in on the call. It's weird to me. There was nothing in place. Was there no one that was in charge of Title IX at the organization? Okay.
No.
Okay. That's one of them. There's another one that I want to show. And this one is the call from, I believe this is a lawyer. Do you want to talk about that, Zeynab, about the lawyer who sent you this message?
Yes, that is John Branson. He was the board appointed legal representation for the People's Party. I had multiple calls with Branson before early in February. He had called, and I think it's a voicemail that you're going to share. He had called and left the voicemail. I hadn't heard the voicemail yet. I called him back on the call where I called him back. We were talking about regular work stuff, and then he started getting into the special investigative committee. And he at that time said that I didn't have a contract for the executive director role yet. That's one thing that Nick was supposed to get to me. He never did. I had my old contract from candidate recruitment director. And he said, we do need to get you a new contract. He said, we can give you a $15,000 sign-on bonus. I told him we don't have the money for a $15,000 sign-on bonus. We are looking at hiring, other staff. I don't think that that's appropriate. He went on to say that, well, the board needs to understand that they can trust me, and that the board can have confidence in me. So if I was to get this $15,000, all that they would ask was to sign something that, would say that I would avoid going public or going forward with this. He said it in lawyer speak, but that's what he had told me. And I told him unequivocally, no, I'm not signing anything. I don't want that sign-on bonus. Just no. I felt like it was him trying to keep me quiet by offering me money.
Eric, can we try this with volume booster really quick? Can you try to do that with this one that's up on the screen? So
Hey, Zeynab, it's John Branson calling. Nothing urgent. I mostly wanted to call just to personally express outside of board context how impressed I am with the job that you're doing with the People's Party, particularly as the leader of the movement, right? We're reaching an evolutionary stage where Nick may be the leader of the party, but you'll be the leader of the movement. And that's causing tension, which, as I hope you saw, I tried to resolve by my proposal at the last board meeting. So, you know, and I know that you're the leader of this movement. But we may have to talk about it differently in front of Nick because he's competitive, I think. He's just competitive around that subject. And maybe he's concerned about who has more power and so forth. You'll have more power because you'll be the leader of the movement. But it's okay for Nick to believe he has more power as the leader of the party. But as I said, the party is just something we created because under U.S. law, you can't gain organized representation in government without forming a political party. So we're really a people's movement.
I'm going to pause it right there for a second. I do think that part is interesting. Again, for those of you just joining, this is John Branson. He's a lawyer, but even he's letting you know right here that MPP is not a political organization. It's a party, a people's movement. So he said right here, it's not a political party. They're not forming a political party. That's just something I wanted to point out.
Always will be, always have been, called a party just because we have to get representation. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I'd like to talk to you about other subjects as well if you get the chance. My best number is my office, 207-780-8611. Thanks.
Again, for those of you just joining, I just want to point that out, that he said that it's not a political party. So I know I say that because some of you had asked me, like, how come they're not running candidates? So he's verifying that right here. It's not a political party. So that's the one from the lawyer. And then there's another one here. Let me just go back. Home button. 186. So this one is about, this was after the board members were removed, Zeynab.
Yes, they had removed 5 board members, and they had also removed a staff member as well. And this had kind of been ramping up over about a month and a half with retaliatory actions from Nick and things that were going on. And then the board wanted to have an emergency board meeting, or not an emergency board meeting. I don't know what they categorized it as. I don't want to misspeak, but they wanted to have a board meeting to talk about the retaliation, which is something that wasn't even talked about in these 2 phone calls that happened afterwards, as well as during the investigation, as well as what the recommendations were. So they wanted to go ahead and talk about what's next. And from my understanding at that meeting, what I know happened next was board members were removed. 5 board members were removed. Just before that, staff was removed. Paula Jean had resigned. And then 2 days later, I was removed. So this is the phone call 2 days before I was removed, on the same day that the board members were removed.
Okay. start that here.
I have that one day, so I don't have a super long time to talk today, but I hope we can talk to you nice about the
I think this one is really, let me see. I think this one's really low. Well, that's weird. It says,
like I said, this was a political decision. This was an administrative decision. And this is something that we had to take immediate action on before we risk the entire party being destroyed at that point. Okay, so and we wanted to kind of talk to you and talk about like moving forward, options moving forward. If we wanted to see where you're at, if you're wanting to move forward together, I would like to hope that we can move forward together, but I know there's been a lot of late. Hey, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Dave. Go ahead. I wanted to. No, you keep saying exactly what I'm saying too. We made a very important decision.
had to pause it for 1 second. It is really low volume on this one. Zeynab, can you explain to people why were those board members removed? Because I know Nick, when he came on, he talked about this as well. And I haven't had a chance to, I only had a chance to talk to one of them over the phone, but the other ones I haven't had a chance to speak to.
Well, they had told the board members, my understanding, that were removed, that they were removed on a bunch of different technicalities. Like one was removed because they said that they had missed 3 meetings or something like that. There was various reasons. What had happened is we were going by what was called interim operating procedures that we believed was our bylaws. And David even says in this call that he had not seen the bylaws until just a couple weeks before this happened. Nick and Rod and I don't know who else had bylaws that the board had never seen, that they brought forward to remove these board members. Bylaws that I had never seen as executive director. How can a board and the executive director never see bylaws? I didn't even know they existed. So they removed them on the premise, but their statement afterwards from the People's Party, as well as what they had said on, Jimmy Dore and Jackson Hinkle, was that they removed the board because the board was plotting a coup against Nick. So that was what they said that they removed them for, but what the board members were told were various reasons that they were removed.
Were the board members trying to push mandates? Because that's one of the things that Nick said when he came on.
Absolutely not. No. Nick wanted to have a vote on the vaccine mandate where, it would kind of be put on our platform. And all that those board members suggested was to have a poll first because it was somewhat of a divisive issue. A lot of people fell a lot of different ways and it had a lot of nuance. Most of us agreed, myself included, that we didn't support, mandates in that way, but then people had different subtleties and nuances to this. So all that they suggested was, instead of having the vote first, let's have a poll first and ask our supporters with a poll and then have a vote. But this was the problem. Nick would go through these board meetings sometimes for hours, just like he would with me on the phone, 3, 4, 5 hours, looping around. And sometimes we would be on till 4 a.m. on board calls, looping around the same thing that he would want voted on, even after the board had casted their vote. And so, no, they weren't pro mandate. They weren't against messaging on mandates. It was just, all they said was, let's have a poll instead of a vote first. That's it. Just as simple as that.
If I could add something, and I know these issues really matter to folks that are interested in a third party or more than one third party being able to oppose the corporate parties. And it's important for us as leftists to talk about. But what we're really talking about too is, at its core, this is an issue of a woman who filed a private sexual assault, a sexual harassment, I think you said an assault, claim, as which is your legal right to do, at the organization that employed you, notifying them that the person who was your supervisor was harming you. It does not seem that it had been investigated properly. There was no sexual assault or harassment policy in place at the time. And then you were fired. I mean, that's a big deal. And for the People's Party to bring, I'm just sorry, all those other issues up, and those are important issues, right? We should be talking about vax mandates and all that stuff. Has nothing to do with somebody filing a private complaint and then the party and the leader of the party coming out and outing the person and then saying this is all politically motivated. That was highly improper from my part.
Professor Zinkus, isn't that retaliation?
It sounds like it to me. It sounds like it to me. And I mean, sadly, it happens all the time and it's highly improper. And this is why, especially women, but it doesn't matter the gender, anybody who's a victim of that type of workplace sexual harassment is in a position where if I speak up, I may lose my job. And it happens all the time. And it happened here. It looks like it happened here. So yeah, it's highly improper. So for the party, for the organization to bring anything else into this is just not relevant. Did it happen or didn't it happen? Was it properly investigated or not? Your position on vax mandates doesn't matter when it comes to this discussion. And it raised my eyebrows when I thought, why are they even talking about issues like this? That has nothing to do with the complaint. And I'm just throwing that out there, and I don't know what both of you think about that.
This is, well, first of all, Zeynab, I appreciate you coming on to tell, your story. As I said, for people who are just joining, Nick came on in April. He told his side of the story. Zeynab came on tonight to tell her side of the story. And I mean, obviously there's a problem here. Regardless of, and first of all, I don't want you to be like, oh, I'm on this side, that side, whatever. Regardless of what side you say that you're on, there's obviously a problem. And that's what I want people to understand who are watching tonight. There's a problem here. I don't care how much you love MPP or whatever, there is a problem. And I think, Zeynab, the question I have for you, what would you like to see happen?
Well, I did want to say that there's a lot of other people that were impacted. Like, I'm going to say her name because the People's Party has Sabrina, who was fired. There was the board members that were removed. These people have gotten a lot of harassment. They have been impacted as well. Paula Jean had complaints filed. Other people before I ever got there had complaints filed, and I wish that I had listened more about it. So I wasn't the first person that was hurt by the organization, and I'm not the first person that's hurt by these kinds of actions in the world, in our country, with terminology like Me Too and people that are demonized when they come forward. This is the culture that we live in, and the People's Party was supposed to be better than that. We were supposed to be building something new, and we were supposed to be better. But I don't want to just make it about me, because there were a lot of other people that were impacted by what happened. But moving forward, I'd like to see accountability. One thing that you have to realize is with these organizations, they have lawyers. Nick comes from privilege. He has lawyers. I'm poor. The people that were removed are poor. Whether we can afford or get legal counsel, there's a lot more barriers for that. So people ask, why isn't all this stuff happening? Why aren't you filing for the retaliation? Why aren't you filing this? Why aren't you doing that? That all takes money, because it takes legal counsel, and legal counsel is expensive. It's not easy to get, but people from privilege, they get high-priced lawyers. How many times have we seen this? How many times have we seen lawyers and covering for organizations when people are fired for sexual harassment, or when they're harassed, or when they're abused, or when they report this, especially when it's someone who has power or is a public figure. This isn't, this happens all the time. So I wanted to tell the story, not just because of what happened to me, but because I believe that accountability is important. I've heard some of the pundits out there say, well, the People's Party has no power yet, so why does it matter? How are they going to act if they're acting this way already? How are they going to act if they do get that power? If this already happens now, how's it going to happen? And how is it right? It's like Anthony says, even if it happened at a dry cleaner, if it happened at a restaurant, it does matter. And I believe in this movement, and I've been working in it for a decade. And I believe I want a third party. I don't support the Democratic Party. I don't support the Republican Party. I support independence. This is a passion of mine politically, but it goes beyond that to culturally who we are as a society. And I would like to see accountability for the actions, and people realizing that if someone that inspires you, Sabby, you did a show on R. Kelly, the other day. That was such a hot topic. There were a lot of people defending R. Kelly because people liked him, and they don't want to believe that somebody that they liked or somebody that they supported. Joe Biden, people like him. They don't want to believe he's done the things that he's done. Nobody likes him. Anthony's right. But, I don't like him.
Some people use it.
He's highly unpopular, but still there are people out there that defend him. And so it's hard if you've believed in something, or if it's somebody that you like. This even happens in abusive relationships. This happens in harassment on the workplace at the micro level. This happens in our family dynamics. It's hard you immediately want to vilify the other person because you yourself, it's internalized. You believe in this movement. You believe in this person. You believed in that. So I would like to see accountability and kind of thinking above that, thinking on these kinds of issues, because what's hurt me the most is other women that have read the posts that have come into my Twitter or other people that have been through this kind of thing and have been afraid to come forward now.
Professor Zinkus, can you explain to everyone before we go, can you explain to everyone, because this is something that comes up a lot, especially with these types of situations, why is it that someone may not or may choose not to report it? Can you please explain that to people?
Well, in the venue of like workplace harassment, as we were talking, because they're afraid of losing their job and being retaliated against, and plus you're trapped, you're there, you have to be there every day, and that harassment happens on a regular basis. Another is because they're not believed. And, we mentioned a couple of times, just the phrase "me too'd," that suggests that something happened to, in many cases, not all, the man. Something happened to him. He was victimized. He was "me too'd," as opposed to what happened was somebody was harmed. Not that person, right? So one of the dynamics is people are afraid to come forward because the person who's accused often gets this deference of, well, how unfair was it for that person to be accused? What happened to, I remember in the Steubenville rape trial some years ago, the CNN reporter, when they read the verdict and it was guilty, I think 2 young men were, they were boys, teens, were guilty of rape. And I remember in their reporting, they said, all that opportunity lost, their lives forever changed, not even mentioning the victim. So that's one of the things. Victims know when they come forward, whether it's harassment or assault, it's the person that's accused that's given the deference first, especially if it's a man, especially if it's a powerful man. And I think the other piece is our society would rather not think about these things. We prefer not to think about child abuse. We prefer not to think about domestic violence. We don't want to think sexual violence happens. We don't want to think sexual harassment happens. So, if this was a cut and dry case of a crime being committed where somebody robbed Zeynab at work, there wouldn't be all of this other stuff. Oh, that's clearly a crime. Somebody took their wallet out of their pocketbook. Why is it when it comes to these crimes that all of a sudden there's all this muddiness. And I think if you look at the example with Tara Reade, the entire apparatus of the Democratic Party made it their business, including the mainstream media, which is lockstep with the Democratic Party apparatus, made it their business to destroy and silence Tara Reade, right? That's their playbook. What was most upsetting to me was that a progressive organization / party, such as the People's Party, took a page right out of that playbook. I don't care what Zeynab's politics are. If she was the victim of inappropriate behavior in the workplace and or crimes, that's the only issue we should be talking about. So why don't people come forward? It's hard. And it can turn a life upside down. And often people who've been traumatized will say, I just want it to go away. Seeking justice should get us to that place, but often with this issue of sexual violence and harassment, it doesn't. It actually does the opposite many times. So I think Zeynab is an amazing, powerful, courageous, and incredible person.
All right. Well, thank you both for coming on. I know this is not easy to discuss, but thank you both for coming on, and I really appreciate you again just coming on to tell your story, because again, this is not something that's easy to do. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and good luck moving forward. Good luck moving forward.
Thank you, Sabby. Oh, I did want to say one more thing. I hope that the People's Party comes out and tells the truth. Just tell the truth. Be the bigger person.
Thank you, Zeynab. Thank you, Professor Zinkas.
Thank you,
Sabby.
Thanks.
Take care.
All right, guys. Okay. I think I'm going to take like a quick 5-minute break. But one thing I do want to say, like I said, some of you came in a little bit later. So I just want to reiterate the fact that, yes, Nick Brana has already been on here. I actually asked him for documentation too. He told me he had documentation. I said, send it over. I never got it. He was also invited back on again after more allegations came out, a different situation. And he said he would come back on. He did not come back on. I did not hear from him again. So again, he was given the same opportunity. So Eric, do you want to hop on real quick? I'm going to take like a 5-minute break.
All right. Oh, this mic over here.
All righty.
All right. I sound okay. All right. Good.
One other thing I want to add too, as you noticed and as was noted, this is not a political party. As was noted by the lawyer, they are not trying to form a political party. So that answers that question. All right, I'm out. I'll be back.
Excuse me. All right. Yeah, I mean, I think one way, we really want to keep in mind with all this is that Sabby's really just playing the role of reporter here. She's not here to take sides or to go on one side or the other. And I'm sure Nick Brana, I'm sure there's an open invitation for him to come back on and say his side of it. I mean, to me, the most compelling part of all that was what Professor Zinkas had to kind of say about how it all played out. All right, let's look at what we got for some super chats. This from Beffer. Thanks for this one. Holding people accountable would have me trust People's Party. We won't trust them now and won't donate. Excuse me. And this from Rodrigo. Nick Brana is killing third-party energy. That's evil. And this one again from Beffer. The people in chat saying she's lying or that this is boring or unimportant are beyond gross. Yeah, I mean, I would tend to ask people to try to be polite and courteous to our guests in general. Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the things I wish we could see with People's Party would be to just having it act more like a party and have candidates and more of a platform and all that good stuff. Let's see what else we got in the chat from the Tory here. It's so many parties out there. The People's Party is not the only one, so calm the F down. From Stephen asking, I believe, about Zeynab, what exactly was her job. I believe she was brought in, as executive director, which would basically make her second in line to Nick. It's kind of on the hierarchy, I believe. Carrie agrees. Yes, I think we agree with that. And Ashera saying, I feel like MPP was done months ago, so why are we still talking about it? Yeah, I mean, there are kind of two different issues here. There's, there's the issue of People's Party as an organization and the politics of it, and then there's the personal issue of a serious claim, of sexual harassment, potential sexual abuse, and so I think it's I think it's fair to have claims adjudicated as much as we can, but yeah, it's all more than a little bit messy. I think we had a super chat here from Radical Eclectic. Thank you very much for this one. I love Jimmy, Jackson, and Lee Camp. They must open their hearts and minds to Zeynab. We can't keep on fragmenting. Yeah, I'm certainly with you on there. I mean, my thing personally is I feel like we need to be concentrating more on what exactly we after. What are our demands? I'm big on demands. If you go to my erictred.com website, you can see my proposed list of demands and some other ideas of trying to really drill down to what exactly are we after, and try to get away from personalities and people and more talk about what are the real issues. In fact, here I'll give you a little look here at the site in the demands, and actually I'm planning. I do videos with Corey, and actually we did one that I have in the can. I have to finish editing it and get it posted. It's a lot of work editing and putting this stuff together, but actually we went over this list and just so keep an eye out for that, just talking about it. But the idea is to kind of drill down on what are we really after, and beyond that is to really be to really use the demands as kind of a sorting hat, to be saying to candidates, do you support our list? Do you support our demands? And if they're not in support of it, then the answer to these candidates is no. If you're not on board with us and our demands, there's no votes, no money, no praise, period. And it gets rid of this whole idea of, are they Democrats, are they progressive Democrats? I mean, it's are you with us or not? And if we are getting candidates that are really on board with these things, people like Matthew Ho in North Carolina, who I hope gets back on the ballot, because of course the Democrats managed to push him off. But when you do get candidates that are in your corner, then you provide them all the support and everything you can. Thanks, Joe. The 11 Demandments. Ooh, I may have to steal that. I like that. And then the other part of this is to when things aren't getting there, then that's not the time to give up. That's the time to intensify and to really be pushing on, and turn up the heat and getting into direct aid and direct actions. That's where mutual aid comes in and strikes. But when when you're doing these things, you have to have demands to be in there. And the other part of all this too is just to be relentless about pointing out the real source of our problems. The billionaires, the mega corporations, and they love it when we lefties fight with each other. And we need to remember it's that top 1% versus the rest of us. All right, and our Sabby is back. Let me clear this off. All right, we ready to carry on?
Yeah, we're gonna go into something lighthearted now. I know that was kind of heavy, so the next two stories are lighthearted. So.
Bye.
All right, guys. Yes, Kat, I did. Sabby getting her drinky. Yes, I just grabbed myself a beer. This is by Zero Gravity. It's called Little Wolf, and this is it's a pale ale. They used to have the ESB, but this is not an ESB. It's pale ale, 4.7 ABV. It's pretty good. Pretty good. All right, guys. Again, just want to reiterate for those of you who are new and may not have seen me before, obviously, people here that have been here for a while to let you know I'm 100% pro third party. I hate the Democratic Party. I hate the Republican Party. So for me, this is all just... It's a hot mess. It is a hot mess, okay? All right. What are the other stories that we're getting into tonight? Let's go ahead and share the thumbnail, and I'll get started with that. All right. So tonight, I'm also going to discuss Anna Kasparian doubts Joe Rogan. What is that all about? And of course, Zeynab Day was just here to tell her story. And I'm also going to discuss Burger King outdone. So there's a Burger King employee that is pretty much received some amazing freaking news. And I think you guys are going to be really happy to hear that. So we're going to end on a good note tonight. So let's go ahead and get into the Anna Kasparian and Joe Rogan story. And this is actually going to be the call-in segment tonight for the call-in show. So I don't know if everyone has seen this, but Lex Fridman, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He has a podcast. He actually just interviewed Joe Rogan. And there was something that came up during that interview about Donald Trump. And Joe Rogan pretty much sets the record straight here. So I think you guys would be interested in hearing about this. Anna Kasparian did talk about this, and I think she could have given Joe Rogan a little bit more credit here where credit's due, but she has her doubts. So let's go ahead and get into that.
By the way, I'm not a Trump supporter in any way, shape, or form. I've had the opportunity to have him on my show more than once. I've said no every time. I don't want to help him. I'm not helping him.
Yes, that was Joe Rogan.
Okay, so that's something I was not aware of until I saw this segment. I didn't know that Joe Rogan has had the opportunity to have Donald Trump on his podcast. Was not aware of that. So that was new to me. And apparently Joe Rogan said no. And that's interesting because I've seen Joe Rogan interview all kinds of people. But it seems like when it comes to someone like Donald Trump, that is where Joe Rogan is going to draw the line. Obviously, you just heard him say there, he is not a Trump supporter. And I'm glad that he said that because this kind of thing has been going around for the past couple of months that Joe Rogan is a secret right winger. And I told you guys I don't believe that. Also, that Joe Rogan's pro like Trump or whatever. I know Joe Rogan did come out and say that he would support someone like Ron DeSantis. But I think that, this may has been stretched a little bit too far. I do want to remind everyone that Joe Rogan did endorse Bernie Sanders in 2020, and he did believe a lot of the policies that Bernie Sanders was running on as well. So let's hear what Anna has to say about this, though, because I don't think she's really buying it.
Feeling that he has actually turned down Donald Trump as a guest on his podcast multiple times. He was being interviewed by host Lex Friedman, who pushed back, saying that he thinks Rogan would actually, be suited to have Trump on, will likely have Trump on in the future. Rogan's explanation for why he won't is telling, though. And so I want you to pay close attention to what he's saying here, because he reveals that he understands the power of his platform and the responsibility that comes along with it.
Think I'll have him on?
Yeah, I think you'll have him on.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
I mean, you've had a lot of people that I think you may otherwise be skeptical. Would I have a good conversation? Which I think is your metric. You don't care about politics, so can I have a good conversation? And I think you had like people like Kanye on, for example, and you had a great conversation with him.
Yeah, but Kanye.
Yeah, but that's not a good comparison. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't compare Kanye West to Donald Trump. I wouldn't make that comparison. I'm sorry. One's an entertainer. The other one was president of the United States. So I don't know.
He's an artist. But Kanye doing well or not doing well doesn't change the course of our country.
Yeah, but do you really bear the responsibility of the course of our country based on a conversation?
I think you can revitalize and rehabilitate someone's image in a way that is pretty shocking.
So let's just stop there for a second, John, because Rogan has had all sorts of people on his podcast who have promoted or said all sorts of incredibly irresponsible and even dangerous things on his podcast.
Yep.
But it is interesting that for Rogan, Trump is his red line.
Yeah, look, I wish I could say I knew more about who he's had on in the past. Like, if you had told me he'd had Trump on in the past, I would not be surprised about it. I'm just as unsurprised that he hasn't. I really don't care who he has on his show. It strikes me as
I really don't care who he has on his show, but I'm gonna complain about who he has on the show. He says he doesn't care, but TYT multiple times has complained about who Joe Rogan has brought on his show. So that's really interesting.
Does he often have politicians on his show? Any politicians, like national figures?
Yeah, he's had politicians.
He does?
Yeah, I mean, when she was a politician, Tulsi Gabbard was on. He had Bernie Sanders on. Okay. I'm sure there are other politicians, but I'm not remembering it.
Okay, yeah. Look, I think again, he approaches like 50% of like a well thought out point. He understands that bringing someone on his platform would help them by promoting them, and he understands that having a serious conversation with them and treating them as a serious person, bringing them on, does help to rehabilitate their image. Of course, at the same time, he's helped to, by his own words, rehabilitate the image of people who are arguably as bad as Trump, who might not be politicians, like literally elected politicians, or those who are presumably going to run for office in the future, but are definitely political actors. Alex Jones doesn't mainly do movie reviews. So look, again, he's not thinking about this. Maybe there's gaps in his thinking. I find that pretty easy to imagine. Maybe he's being disingenuous. To be fair to him, he hasn't had Trump on, and I have no doubt that if he wanted to have Trump on, he could. So I'll give him that credit.
Right. So look, I didn't want to talk about this to either give him credit or not give him credit. I think that it's an interesting conversation because this is the first time that he has acknowledged that he has a lot of power with this massive platform that he's built. Mm-hmm. And I think that's relevant given what he got a lot of criticism for during the pandemic, which was the promotion.
Sorry guys, I gotta skip this part. YouTube doesn't like this. I know what they're about to get into. But to the point that I think she's trying to make here is that I guess he didn't seem to have that concern when he brought on people, doctors, to talk about, I guess, an alternative opinion about the jab and things like that. Like, I honestly didn't have a problem with that. I think you need to hear from other voices. I think it's dangerous for us to sit back and just go along with the establishment narrative. I mean, haven't we done this before? Haven't we learned this from the past? So I thought that was ridiculous. I didn't think it was fair that people wanted to censor him or ban him from Spotify because he brought on people that had a difference of opinion. To me, that was just censorship. So my whole thing is like, I don't agree with Anna here. I think he can bring on whoever he wants to bring on his show. And here's the thing, you don't have to watch it. That's how I feel about it. Oh, that's a bad place to pause this. I am so sorry. Whoops. Let's go back in.
Guy, and I'm a podcaster and I do comedy. Like, you shouldn't be taking medical advice from me.
Then why do you constantly have on people who talk about medicine and public?
But the medical advice, no. There's a difference between bringing on a medical professional to talk about medical advice and you yourself just trying to do it on your own. They're leaving that part out. Like, Joe Rogan did bring on doctors to talk about it. They're acting like he just came up with this theory and everything on his own. That's not the case. So I'm sorry, but he was letting people know what the doctors were saying. So no, I'm sorry, Anna. That doesn't work on me.
Health crises.
So let's
and all
talk
sorts of
about
stuff
that
like
real quick, because, you know, he has all sorts of people on who, of course, push the vaccine skepticism. You've got Robert Malone, you've got Brett Weinstein.
But that's a doctor. I got to skip this part a little bit. Sorry. Again, I told you, I know what YouTube's going to say. That's a medical doctor. It's not like Robert was just some friend of his that lives next door. I mean, come on. Like, this is why I don't like TYT. This is why I don't like TYT. I don't like it. They want the narrative to be only them. That's the thing. And they're pretty much MSNBC light.
About how his show can really rehabilitate someone's reputation. He then proceeded to rehabilitate the reputation of someone that you actually mentioned. John, let's take a look.
Look at the way people look at Alex Jones now, because Alex Jones has been on my podcast a few times.
Yeah, how do they, which direction?
The people that have watched those podcasts think he's hilarious. And they think that he definitely up with that whole Sandy Hook thing. But he's right more than he's wrong. And he's not an evil guy. He's had some serious bouts of alcoholism, some serious bouts of, substance abuse, and they've contributed to some very poor thinking. And if you know him on podcasts, you realize like he is genuinely trying to unearth some things that are genuinely disturbing for most people.
The Posner family had to move 7 times because of Alex Jones's lies about Sandy Hook being a false flag operation. Their son was gunned down in that mass shooting.
But, and I get that, but how is that Joe Rogan's fault? Do you guys see what I mean? Like, why is that his fault though? It's not. So again, I feel like they're contradicting themselves. They say they don't care who he has on the show, but you're complaining about people he's had on the show. So which is it?
Yeah.
Their son is dead. And to add insult to injury, Alex Jones lied about them, called them crisis actors, and then his lunatic audience proceeded to threaten the lives of the parents who lost their son.
Well, that's true, but he only,
But
to be
it's
fair,
alcoholism.
he only did that
It's
for many
alcoholism.
years.
Many years.
And in the words of Joe Rogan, but what do you mean? But what? Like, is it possible that a broadcaster can do? Let's pretend that that's the only bad thing that Alex Jones has done. Is it possible that maybe that one bad thing is too bad? That at that point you can't rehabilitate him? And it isn't. He thinks that every other shooting, up to and including the shootings of this week, were false flags. He still tells his audience that they're false flags. He still tells them that politicians are literally inhabited by Satan. Like this week, if you just took what he said in his show this week, it would be enough that you should write this person off. But no, he's just funny. He's not actively trying to destroy people's lives and inculcate xenophobia and racism and bigotry and anti-Semitism and all that. And like, I cannot imagine that Joe Rogan does not know this.
Joe Rogan's.
So again, does that mean that he's not supposed to talk to him? Is that really what they're saying, that you shouldn't talk to that person? I, for one, believe in restorative justice, right? I think that people can have restorative justice, that they can change. Now, I don't know Alex Jones. I actually never watched him, to be honest. I heard a lot about him, but I never watched him. So for me, I'm just kind of like, Maybe he did change. I don't know. Either way, if he wants to talk to him, I think he has that right. Just, I don't know. It just, I think they just like to take jabs at Joe Rogan. I feel like no matter what he does, they're still going to criticize him regardless. Like he just told you at the very beginning that he does not support Trump, and that's the one person that he would not bring on. But they still have to find something. They still have to find something to go after him about. This is what they do.
Unwavering loyalty to Alex Jones blows my mind. It really does, especially since I don't listen. There are plenty of people in this country who are struggling with addiction issues, alcoholism. They don't go around directing hatred and death threats toward people whose children were slaughtered in a mass shooting. Just saying. I could be, maybe I'm being a little unhinged here by mentioning that, directing violence toward people whose children were slaughtered is unacceptable under any circumstance, even if someone is struggling with alcoholism. So rehabilitating Alex Jones's reputation, not here for it. But the other thing I want to just quickly mention is, look.
So Anna just let you know she's not for rehabilitation, only for certain people.
Joe Rogan will turn on his own beliefs, his well-established, talked about beliefs on his podcast to defend Alex Jones. He caught feelings when I called Alex Jones a fat F. He caught feelings over that.
Really?
He did. And I asked him about it. I was like, you don't think fat shaming is even a thing. You think fat shaming is totally fine. But for some reason, when I called Alex Jones that, which by the way, he is, let's call a spade a spade.
That's hitting below the belt. That's hitting below. Look, I have criticism for people, but one thing I don't do, I don't go after, I don't body shame people. Regardless if I agree with someone or not, you won't hear me call them, oh, you're a fat fuck, which apparently she did. I think that's low. Interesting.
He caught feelings because you can fat shame everyone else, but don't fat shame his buddy Alex Jones. Okay.
Well, nobody would want their friend to be fat shamed. Do you want someone to call your friend a fat fuck? No. This is Anna Kasparian not taking responsibility. She doesn't want to apologize for the comment that she made. So she's putting it all on Joe Rogan. John should have pushed back here. John should have pushed back and said, you know what, Anna, that wasn't cool. That's hitting below the belt.
Anyway, listen, he understands the power he has with this platform. Yet he is super irresponsible with it on a regular basis now. He's decided to surround himself with all sorts of right-wing lunatics and conspiracy theorists. But the other thing I want to just quickly mention is that he could actually use his platform. He can interview whoever he wants.
Why do you care who he hangs out with? I don't understand that. Why do you care? So I want to say something very quick here. Joe Rogan is not a political commentator. Joe Rogan will say that himself. He's not it's not like this show. It's not like Hardlands Media. Like, he's not a political commentator. It is a podcast where he brings on all different type of people to have discussions. And I think the reason why some people tend to think that is because he has had some politicians on his show. And maybe because he endorsed Bernie Sanders for 2020. But it's not a political show. That being said, if he has on someone from the left or someone from the right, why does that even matter? I don't understand. I don't understand what the issue is here, Anna. He just told you he would draw the line with Donald Trump, and you're still upset. You're still angry with Joe. It's really weird. Like, I've never seen, I don't get it. I just feel like he lives in so many people's heads. Like, I really do. They probably wake up every morning thinking about, I wonder who Joe Rogan's hanging out with. They go to bed thinking like, oh, who's Joe Rogan talking to? Who's Joe Rogan got on the show now? Who the fuck cares? It's his show. He can bring on whoever the fuck he wants. I
have a problem with that. Interview whoever you want. But if you're going to interview someone who's a controversial figure, just know what you're talking about and just be informed enough to challenge what they're saying when they're BSing your audience.
Yeah.
So like a good example of him handling a guest perfectly was Dave Rubin. He had Dave.
If that isn't the pot calling the kettle black, did you do the same thing when you interviewed Madeleine Albright? You took pictures with her, Anna. You were cheesing hard in that photo. Did you think about the responsibility to your audience when you did that? Just a question. Just a question.
Rubin on. Dave Rubin made a fool out of himself because Rogan was informed enough to counter Dave Rubin's idiocy when it came to, the US Postal Service, when it came to building code regulations. And it was great to see because he dismantled Dave Rubin's idiotic arguments in real time. Loved to see it. It was interesting.
They love to talk about Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin left TYT years ago and they love to talk about this dude. I don't even know people that watch Dave Rubin. I really don't. I'm sure a lot of people probably do, but I don't know anyone that watches Dave Rubin. And I hate to say it, as much as you guys dislike Dave Rubin, TYT, you bringing his name up all the time is actually giving him more attention. Some people might move on and forget about him, but they can't because you keep bringing him up. So there's that. I mean, it's really weird to me, their obsession with Dave Rubin and Joe Rogan.
So he can interview whoever he wants. The problem that I have is that he seems to allow his loyalty for some of the worst people in this country to cloud his better judgment. And I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, it's annoying. Again, I would love to, first of all, let me be clear, to never hear about him again in my life. But more importantly, if he just wants to have a chat show where he smokes weed and he talks to people, and clearly he just wants to hear something interesting. That's what he wants. He wants to have on a brain scientist or an MMA guy or whatever, and he wants to hear something interesting. He's not interested in knowing enough about it to know if this is a reputable person, if this is a serious person, if it is.
Aha. And that's the problem. They want Joe Rogan to talk to people that are reputable and people that are serious. And this is a big problem in independent media. You already get enough of that for mainstream media, but independent media, you have that too. There are some shows that will only talk to people that have written books, that are elite academic, that are a celebrity, that are politicians, that are candidates. They will only talk to those people. And so John is kind of saying the quiet part out loud here. Those aren't the people that they think that he should be talking to. That's right. That's right, Beffer. Never the working class. You're right.
Responsible to expose my audience to this person. And I doubt he cares. I doubt even if he had the capacity to be prepared for all of his interviews, he wouldn't want to, because his goal is not to learn and better understand all of these topics. It's to hear something cool. And then
expose my audience to this person. How dare you expose your audience to people that have a different opinion? How dare you expose your audience to people that don't have a powerful reputation? How dare you expose your audience to people that are not popular? How dare you expose your audience to people of a certain class? Oh, let's just call it all out. How dare you do that, Joe? That's the problem. You look at networks like TYT, they talk about working class rights. They tell you we should support working class people, but then they only want to talk to certain people. Anybody ever notice this? Only want to talk to certain people. I would really like to see TYT bring Rome, my comrade from RBN, on their show, so he can talk to their audience about Tour for the Poor and how he travels across the country feeding and clothing homeless people. Won't see that though. How dare you expose your audience to those types of people? Classist much.
And largely forget about it and move on with his life. He's not coming out of all these conversations with a dramatically changed worldview. He'll talk to someone a month later who tells him the exact opposite thing, and that'll be cool and interesting. And all of that is fine. And if everybody who was a fan of him just accepted that that's what they were getting, I would be fine with it. The thing that bothers me is when people think that their fandom means something that it doesn't. If you're a fan of Joe Rogan, that's fine. If you're a fan of Jordan Peterson, that's fine. But what you're a fan of is not curiosity and intellectual like rigor, and that's not
intellectual rigor. Let it all out, John. Let us know how you really feel. Ashura just said it in the chat. Yep, Sabby, the elitist managerial class. That's what it's all about. It's very interesting.
what you want. That's branding. That's all that is. They have branded these people as being for guys who are more curious and interested in the world. No, guys that are curious and interested in the world can go to the goddamn library and they can read a book about basically anything if they want to. They can talk to these people. You are specifically going to a person who's going to give you a really chopped down, easy to understand version of this. It's not really going to challenge anything that you are.
What's wrong with an easy to understand version? You guys know, working in education, one of the things that you have to do sometimes, and if you're a teacher in the chat, you know this, one of the things you have to do sometimes is that you have to change your lesson. You have to change your style of teaching if the students in the class aren't understanding what you're teaching. I don't like the phrase dumb it down. I prefer, like, you have to make it easier to understand. If you have a student or students in your class that are struggling to understand the lesson, you don't give up on them, or you shouldn't. Some do. You don't give up on them. You tweak your lesson, you tweak your style of teaching, and you make it easier for them to understand it in a way that they can understand it. What's wrong with that, John? What's wrong with him bringing on people that talk about things in that way? This is the problem. This is the class issue. This is what I keep telling you guys about. Oh, you're only supposed to talk to people, certain types of people. How are you going to say that? In all those years, you were telling people support Bernie Sanders because he's for the working class. Yeah, but are you?
Already believe, and all of that is fine. Just be honest with yourself about it.
Yeah. Well, they won't be. So looking forward to whatever comes in 2024 during that election process. It's going to be great. Don't worry, Gavin Newsom, who has destroyed California.
That's pretty much the end of that segment. Yeah, I just... the way I don't understand why you just couldn't take the win there. When he said he didn't want to bring Trump on, he doesn't want to give him more attention, and he said he's not a Trump supporter. Why couldn't you take that as a win? I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say, you guys. I'm at a loss for words. I'm going to go to some of the comments here. Eric, I'm not sure. Let me know in the private chat, Eric. Did you get the ones at the top? 9:18 p.m. You probably got that one. Oh, all new, so maybe not. Thank you for the super chat, AJF. Sorry to get on a tangent, folks, but a recent J Doors video clip, AOC pretends she wants pressure from voters. perfectly sums up why we should ignore her obvious gaslighting. Well said. Thank you for this super chat, AJF. She knows what we want, yet her and the No Squad are consistently sidelining themselves against established leading Democrats. Cowards. And thank you for this super chat as well. The left needs to coalesce. In our vast collective, there is an intrinsic aspect of diverse stances, especially relating to capitalism. Thank you for this super chat, Beffer. Why aren't defamation laws enough? Why promote censorship? Does no lefty remember the W years? Oof, I remember the W years. Thank you for the super chat, AJF. Not everyone is anti-capitalist in our nation, so the left can attract the uninitiated to our side on simply critiquing capitalism on common sense economic ground and not leftist doctrine terminology. I know, I wish we could just unite everybody over class, man. I really do. Thank you for the super chat, CB Jamrock. Welcome to Jamrock. That's my song. Chunk Yogurt. Oh, man. Why, CB? That's not nice. Thank you for the super chat, Harry. Anna herself platform mass murderer Albright. Exactly. Hello. Thank you for the super chat. Oh, but Harry, it's okay when it's warmongers. Thank you for the super chat, AJF. There's too much he, she, they are not leftist enough infighting in my estimation. That's a good point. And thank you for the super chat, Trone Dean. Good job. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Trone. Yes, Frank. Love Damian Marley. Yes, I love that song. Jam rock. All right. I have a oh, thanks, Eric. Thanks for the super chat, Steve. Joe has stated that he thinks Tulsi would make the best president. Enough said. Where is it going to? Oh, I have a really good story, a happy story that I want to close with tonight. I think this will make you guys feel really good. So I'm not sure if everyone saw this, but there was a Burger King employee. He's worked there for 27 years. And so Burger King decided to give him a gift for working there for 27 years and never missing a day, which is crazy because that means even if he was probably sick, he still went to work, or he just doesn't get sick. Some people just don't. He was trending after he made a video showing the gift that they gave him. So I want to show you that first, and then I want to show you what has happened after this video has gone viral. So let's dive into that. Welcome to Jam Rock. Okay, so here he goes. My reward that my job got me for 27 years. Never missed a day of work. Thank you.
A movie ticket. Thank you very much. And I also got a bag of Reese's. This is very nice. From Starbucks. Thank you guys. And like a lanyard. 2 pins. And a couple of key chains. And 2 lifesavers. So it's good to show what their appreciation for loyalty and for all you've done for the company. This is my reward for work for 27 years. Thank you guys. A movie ticket.
So that was his goodie bag reward for working there for 27 years. I think that was ridiculous. Burger King could have done a better job. Everything that they gave him in that bag, we could have given him just because. But if someone's been employed with you for 27 years, you need to roll out the red carpet. You need to do better than that. And apparently, people who saw that video felt the same way. So much to the point that they were willing to give them a gift of their own. I want to show you what has happened with him now. Let me scoot out of this screen here. So I do want to say, if you ever want to see good news, there's a site called Good News Network. I do check this out every now and then. There's not a lot of news on here, I'm just going to be honest. But I do check it out every now and then. And that's where I found the update to his story. So Burger King worker of 27 years gets $270,000 from strangers when they see his lack of company goodbye gift. So here we go. Let's dive in. So there he is. I can't believe they gave him Reese's. The other thing too, when they gave him food, it was all like junk food, nothing healthy, nothing good for your body, you know, 2 pins, really cheapos. All right, let's dive in. Social media was furious on behalf of Kevin Ford, a food service employee who recently posted on Instagram unwrapping a thank you gift he received for 27 years of perfect attendance on the job. Seeing how it contained a reusable Starbucks cup, a bunch of candy, a pen, and a single movie ticket, they decided to give Ford their own gift for his exemplary service. $270,000 in personal donations for the man so near to retirement. See, you know what? That's mutual aid, guys. 270,000. So see, this is what I'm saying. When we gave all that money to Bernie Sanders and squad members or any other politicians, see how that money can actually be used to help someone immediately? $270,000. The original unwrapping video was viewed 2 million times, though not everyone was as happy and understanding as Kevin, who said thank you for every item he received. Did they really only give him one movie ticket? That was one person from TikTok, and he's so humble and kind about it. This pisses me off so much. He deserves so much more. Another person commented on Reddit. Ford's daughter, Serena, set up a GoFundMe in the aftermath, writing that indeed he had never missed a scheduled shift. The man in that video is my father. He's originally began working at this job as a single father when he gained custody of me and my older sister 27 years ago. In no way are we asking for money or is he expecting any money. But if anyone feels like blessing him, he would love to visit his grandchildren. In just over a week, this delicate call for mutual appreciation, I'd say mutual aid, but yeah, mutual appreciation of a good man who works at the Burger King at Las Vegas McCarran International Airport amassed $250,000, including $5,000 from writer and comedian David Spade. So even David Spade chipped in. In a pair of statements, Burger King, the restaurant Mr. Ford works in, and HMMS Host, the staffing company that mans it, explained the gift was a peer-to-peer recognition and not a franchise award for 27 years of immaculate service. Still, that's a crappy gift. For all those years, you feel unappreciated, but you get up just like everybody else. You do your job, and for somebody to show you this appreciation is just overwhelming. And that's what he said in the Today Show interview. I would play the clip, but I think Today Show maybe have a copyright, you guys. So that's why I didn't play it. But that's him there. So he was on the Today Show. And I just want to say, you know, he says, it's like I've been in a dream for almost 2 days now. It's just so beautiful and awesome. Guys, look at the expression on his face. You can tell he's so thankful, just so humble. You know, he wasn't even complaining about the gift. He just accepted it the way it was. But everybody else definitely saw that he deserved more. So I'm not sure if Burger King has left another statement. Probably not. I'll go right into it, Eric. has left another statement or not. But all I want to say is, congratulations to him. I did want to end with a good story, you guys. We do need to hear some good news every now and then. And obviously that's someone who was working really hard and finally got what they deserve, I would say. I have 2 more chats I need to read here. And then I think I got some comments on Rockfin. So I'm going to close out with those. Thank you for the super sticker. It's all good. It's all good. Thank you for the super chat, Net Rando. His grace and gratitude is a lesson for us all, though. Exactly. He was so humble about it. I'll take those comments on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger Meadows. 2 things stood out. 1, MPP, not a party. 2, she said that her job tied her there. Another reason why some UBI policies are needed, where if need be, victims can remove themselves from risk situations like that. That's a good point, Roger. And thank you for this tip as well. Don't dumb it down, change it around. That's right. That's right. What's that, Jonathan? They did leave a statement. They basically took credit for it. Of course. Of course. Oh, dear. Okay, guys, I'm proud of myself. I'm actually ending right on time. So the call-in segment tonight, and Eric, I don't think I gave you the link for it. Let's go ahead and do that. Computer love. The call-in segment for tonight is episode 22. Joe Rogan says no to Trump. In a recent interview, Joe Rogan said he turned down an interview with Trump because he does not want to give Trump a platform. What are your thoughts? So I'm going to share that link really quick. Tweet it out. Thanks for the super chat, Ashura. Jimmy would have made me laugh with that feel-good story. Yeah, he probably would have. I'm not as funny. I'm sorry. Call-in room. Do. All right, let's go ahead and put it up. All right. Definitely call in, guys. I want to hear your thoughts. Want to hear what you have to say about this. I'm sure you guys will mention other things as well, as you usually do. Paste that here. There's the call-in link. And let's go ahead here. Somebody's watching me. And I'll pin it to the top of the chat too. I was going to do a poll tonight, but I figured since I did one last night, I don't want to poll you to death. Let's see. Pin it to the top of the chat. Watching me. Take a look at me now. Why is it? Okay, I want to pin. Okay, pinned. All right. So the link for the call-in room is now pinned at the top of the live chat. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up. You guys know how I do it. I open it up while I'm live because just in case something happens. And then people are like, where'd the link go? Watching me. And I have no privacy. Oh. Another song to get stuck in your head. Okay, cool. The room is open and I'll see you guys on the other side. So have a good night. Keep up the fight.